This is the story of a boy who traveled further than anyone he knew. He left his city of water when he was 17. He came home again many years later, an older man. People still argue about how much of his story was true. His name was Marco Polo. Marco Polo, the man who walked to the edge of the world. Chapter 1. A Boy from Venice. Long ago, there was a city built on water. Its name was Venice. Boats moved through the streets instead of cars. People traveled by water to buy fish, bread, and silk. This busy city was full of traders. Marco Polo was born in Venice around the year 1254. Venice was not a quiet place. It was loud and full of color. Ships arrived every day from faraway lands. They carried spices, silk, and gold. Sailors spoke many languages. Sellers shouted prices in the market. Marco grew up surrounded by these sounds and smells. His father was a merchant. His name was Marco Polo. Every year, he packed his goods and sailed to faraway cities. There, he sold silk and jewels for a good price. Then he bought new goods to sell back home. This was his work and his life. When Marco was still a baby, his father left Venice. He went east with his brother, Maffeo. They wanted to trade with new lands. Marco's mother died while his father was away. Young Marco grew up without his parents close to him. His aunt and uncle raised him instead. Life in Venice shaped Marco's mind. He heard sailors tell stories about foreign lands. He saw maps with strange shapes and places no one could name. He listened to travelers speak about deserts and mountains. These stories filled his imagination. He dreamed of seeing the world himself. As a boy, Marco learned about trade. He learned how to judge the value of silk and jewels. He learned how to check a simple business paper before signing it. Venice was a city of business, so children learned business early. Marco also learned about ships and sailing. Venice depended on the sea for its wealth. Meanwhile, his father and uncle traveled very far. They crossed deserts and mountains. They reached the court of a powerful ruler named Kublai Khan. Kublai Khan ruled a huge empire in Asia. His land stretched from China to parts of Europe. This land was called the Mongol Empire. It was one of the biggest empires the world had ever seen. Kublai Khan welcomed the Polo brothers with kindness. He was curious about Europe. He asked them many questions about the leader of the church in Rome. He also asked about the Christian faith. Kublai Khan asked the brothers to return to Europe. He wanted them to bring back priests and holy oil. He gave them a special golden tablet. This tablet let them travel safely through his lands. Every guard who saw it knew to help them. The brothers returned to Venice after many years away. Marco was now a teenager. He barely knew his father. Still, he was excited to meet him. His father told him amazing stories about the East. He spoke of golden palaces and strange animals. He spoke of deserts wider than the sea. Marco listened carefully to every word. He wanted to see these wonders with his own eyes. In 1271, Nicola and Maffeo prepared for another journey east. This time, they decided to bring Marco with them. Marco was only 17 years old. He said goodbye to Venice, not knowing when he would return. This choice changed his life forever. It also changed how people in Europe understood the world. Marco did not know it yet. He was about to begin one of the greatest journeys in history. He was leaving behind the small canals of Venice. Ahead of him lay deserts, mountains, and an empire beyond imagination. Chapter 2. The Long Road East. The journey began by sea. The Polo family sailed toward the Middle East. Then they continued overland. This road was part of the famous Silk Road. Traders had used this network of paths for hundreds of years. They carried silk, spices, and other goods between Asia and Europe. Traveling the Silk Road was not easy. The group crossed hot deserts under a burning sun. They climbed steep, rocky mountains. Sometimes there was little food or water. Sometimes robbers attacked travelers on the road. Marco later wrote about these dangers. He described sandstorms so strong that they could bury a whole group of travelers. Despite the hardship, Marco was full of curiosity. He watched everything closely. He studied the different peoples they met. He noticed their clothes, their food, and their customs. Marco had a sharp memory. He remembered small details that other travelers missed. The journey took almost 4 years. The family crossed places we now call Iran, Afghanistan, and the mountains of Central Asia. They passed through cities with markets full of unusual goods. They saw camels carrying heavy loads of silk and spices. Marco was amazed by everything he saw. He kept small facts in his mind. He remembered the color of a market roof or the taste of a new fruit. He never forgot them. One city stayed in Marco's memory more than any other. It had wide streets and tall bridges over calm water. Boats moved through canals, just like in Venice, but this city was far bigger. Markets sold silk in every color. Cooks sold hot food from small stands, and the smell filled the air. Marco walked through the streets for hours. He counted the bridges. He listened to the noise of the crowds. He thought this city was one of the finest places he had ever seen. He never forgot it. Finally, in 1275, they reached the court of Kublai Khan. Kublai Khan ruled from a great city. It was full of grand palaces and wide streets. Marco was only 21 years old, but he was ready to serve the great ruler. Kublai Khan liked Marco very much. Marco was smart, and he noticed everything around him. He learned the local languages quickly. He could speak clearly about many different topics. Kublai Khan decided to give him important jobs. He sent Marco on special trips across the empire. Marco saw things with his own eyes and reported back honestly. Marco traveled to places most Europeans had never seen. He visited large cities with busy markets. He saw temples covered in gold. He visited places with strange animals like elephants and rhinos. Every place he visited, he studied carefully. He wanted to understand how people lived and worked. For years, Marco served Kublai Khan with loyalty. Some stories say he even became the leader of a Chinese city for a short time. Other stories say his job was smaller, more like a trusted messenger. Whatever his exact job was, Marco held real trust from the Khan. Kublai Khan's empire was huge and well organized. It had a strong system of roads and messengers. News could travel quickly across thousands of miles. Marco was impressed by this system. He was also impressed by the Khan's wealth. The palace used paper money instead of coins. This was strange and new to Marco. In Europe, people still used only gold and silver coins. Marco lived among the Mongols and the Chinese people for many years. He learned their customs and their ways of ruling. He became used to a world very different from Venice. Slowly, 17 years passed. Marco was no longer a young boy. He was now a grown man who had lived an amazing life far from home. Yet even with all this success, something began to change. Kublai Khan was growing old. The politics of the empire were shifting. Marco and his family began to think about their future. Could they stay in this distant land forever? Or was it finally time to think about going home to Venice? Chapter 3: Trust, Rivalry, and the Long Way Home. Living so close to a powerful ruler brought both rewards and dangers. Marco enjoyed great respect at Kublai Khan's court. But other officials sometimes felt jealous. Some people did not like that an outsider held so much trust. Court life was full of quiet competition. People competed for the Khan's attention. Despite this, Kublai Khan valued Marco's honesty above all else. Many officials told the Khan only good news. They were afraid to share bad news. Marco, however, reported what he truly saw, even when it was not good news. This honesty made him different from other advisors. It made the Khan trust him even more. As the years passed, the Polo family began to worry. Kublai Khan was getting older every year. If he died, the empire might fall into trouble. Powerful men might fight over who should rule next. If that happened, outsiders like the Polos could be in danger. They needed a plan to leave safely. A chance finally appeared. A Mongol princess needed to travel to Persia for her marriage. The journey was long and dangerous by land. Officials decided a sea route would be safer for her. They needed experienced travelers to guide her ships. The Polos were chosen for this important task. Kublai Khan agreed to let them go, but only for this one mission. He still hoped they would return to his court one day. Marco felt both excited and sad. He had spent almost his entire adult life in this empire. Now, he was finally going home. But he was leaving a world he had grown to love. The sea journey was extremely hard. The ships faced storms, sickness, and hunger. Many people on the journey died before reaching Persia. Marco, his father, and his uncle survived. They safely brought the young princess to her new home. After finishing this mission, the Polos continued their journey toward Europe. The trip was long and full of problems. Fighting between rulers blocked some roads. They had to find other paths. Finally, after 24 years away, they arrived back in Venice. Venice had changed while Marco was gone. Many people did not know his face. His clothes looked strange to them. His stories sounded too big to believe. People whispered that he must be lying. How could one man see so many wonders? Soon after his return, a war broke out. Venice fought against a rival city called Genoa. Marco joined the fight, as many Venetian men did during the war. During a sea battle, his ship was taken by soldiers from Genoa. Marco became a prisoner. Being a prisoner seemed like terrible luck. But something surprising happened while he was there. Marco shared a cell with another prisoner, a writer named Rustichello. Marco began telling him stories about his travels. Rustichello listened with wonder. He decided to write these adventures down. Together, they made a book. It told about Marco's amazing journeys across Asia. It told about Kublai Khan's great empire. It told about customs, cities, and wonders no European had written about before. This book would soon travel far past the prison walls. It would travel far past Marco's own life, too. Chapter 4. The Book That Changed the World. The book written in prison became famous across Europe. People called it the Travels of Marco Polo. It spread quickly. People had no machines to print books yet, so copies were made by hand. People copied it by hand, page by page, and shared it widely. Traders, thinkers, and explorers all wanted to read it. Many readers found the stories hard to believe. Marco described cities bigger than anything in Europe. He described paper money, coal used for heat, and glasses for the eyes. He described strange animals and rich palaces covered in gold. Some people gave him a nickname. They called him Marco Millions because his stories sounded too big to be true. Still, many readers were amazed and excited. His descriptions of Asia opened their eyes to a huge and complex world. Before this book, most Europeans knew very little about lands so far away. Marco Polo's writing changed that completely. In time, Marco was set free from prison. He returned to a normal life in Venice. He married and had 3 daughters. He became a respected merchant again, just like his father before him. He lived a quiet life for many years after his adventures ended. Even near the end of his life, people asked him about his stories. They wanted him to admit that he had made them bigger than they really were. As the story goes, Marco simply said one thing. He had not even told half of what he saw. He died in 1324. Until the end, he believed that every word of his journey was true. Long after his death, Marco Polo's book kept its power over the world. It helped map makers draw better, more correct maps of Asia. It pushed later explorers to search for new paths to the east. Some experts believe it even shaped the plans of Christopher Columbus. Columbus owned a copy of the book. He read it closely and wrote small notes in the empty spaces on the pages. He dreamed of reaching the rich lands Marco described. The book did not stay in one language for long. People copied it and told it again in French, in Italian, and later in many other languages. Every new copy was a little different. Copying by hand was slow, and people sometimes changed small details. Still, the heart of the story stayed the same in every copy. Readers across Europe learned about a world they had never imagined. For many, it was their first look at Asia at all. Today, experts still talk about certain parts of Marco's story. Some ask if he truly visited every place he described. Some ask if parts of his story came from other travelers he met on the road. But most agree on one important point. Marco Polo helped connect two very different worlds through his stories. Why do we still remember Marco Polo today? His journey shows us the power of curiosity. He was not afraid of the unknown. He crossed deserts, mountains, and oceans. He wanted to see what lay far beyond his home. His careful eye gave Europe a new understanding of Asia's size, wealth, and culture. His life also reminds us why stories matter. Without his time in prison and without Rustichello's help, no one may have ever known his adventures. Instead, his words traveled across hundreds of years. They gave new ideas to explorers, traders, and dreamers long after he was gone. Marco Polo stands as a bridge between East and West. He showed that different cultures could meet, trade, and learn from each other. His journey was not just about maps and money. It was about human curiosity and the wish to understand a wider world. That is why, even hundreds of years later, we still tell his story. Vocabulary Review. Let's review 8 important words from Marco Polo's story. The first word is merchant. A merchant is a person who buys and sells goods for a living. In the story, we heard that Marco's father was a merchant named Niccolo Polo. The second word is empire. An empire is a large group of countries or regions controlled by one powerful ruler. The story told us that Kublai Khan ruled a huge empire in Asia. The third word is curious. If you are curious, you want to learn or know more about something. We learned that Kublai Khan was curious about Europe and asked many questions. The fourth word is honesty. Honesty means telling the truth, even when it is difficult. The story explained that Marco's honesty made him different from other advisors at the court. The fifth word is loyalty. Loyalty means staying faithful and supportive to someone over time. We heard that Marco served Kublai Khan with loyalty for many years. The sixth word is rival. A rival is a person or a group that competes against you. The story mentioned that Venice fought against a rival city called Genoa. The seventh word is prisoner. A prisoner is someone who is caught and kept somewhere against their will. Marco became a prisoner after his ship was taken during a battle. The eighth and final word is nickname. A nickname is a fun or informal name people use instead of your real name. In the story, people gave Marco a nickname. They called him Marco Millions because his story sounded so big. Now you know 8 new words from Marco Polo's amazing journey. Try using them in your own sentences today. Talk about a merchant you know, or describe someone curious in your life. The more you practice, the more natural these words will feel. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope Marco Polo's adventure inspired your own curiosity about the world. If you enjoyed learning today, come back soon for our next story. There are many more amazing journeys and interesting people waiting for you. See you in the next video.